Florida gained 365,000 net new residents in a single recent year, while California lost 691,000 and New York shed 299,000. But here's what the headlines miss. It's not just retirees anymore. The average age of Florida's new arrivals dropped to 35. Remote workers, young families, and professionals under 40 now make up the largest share of inbound migration, and they're not coming for early bird specials. Everyone thinks they know why people move to Florida. No state income tax, beaches, weather, sure, but those reasons existed in 1995, and Florida wasn't adding 1,000 people per day back then. Something shifted. While the rest of America argues about Florida in political terms, one group stayed quiet and just moved there. Tech workers from Seattle, families from Illinois, entrepreneurs from New Jersey. The data shows they're not slowing down, and they're not coming for the reasons you think. We're breaking down 7 reasons Florida remains one of America's top relocation states. Not the obvious tourism brochure talking points, but the structural advantages making people uproot entire lives. From economic fundamentals nobody mentions to infrastructure investments you've never heard about to lifestyle arbitrage that goes way beyond no income tax. Some of these reasons are a decade old, some emerged in the last 3 years. All of them are accelerating. If you've considered Florida, or you're wondering why your cousin just moved to Tampa, or you want to understand what's actually driving American migration patterns beyond the culture war noise, hit subscribe. We're counting down from number 7 to number 1. Have you considered Florida? Drop your current state in the comments. Number 7, housing supply actually exists. Let's start with the most basic reason people can actually move to Florida. There are houses to buy. Sounds obvious. It's not. While California argues about SB 9 and whether duplexes will destroy neighborhood character, Florida issued 215,000 residential building permits in a recent year. California, with twice the population, issued 120,000. The math is brutal. Florida builds housing faster than demand increases. California does the opposite and calls it progressive policy. According to Zillow data, the typical Florida home sits on the market for 35 days. In San Francisco, it's 27 days, but only because there are 5 offers the first weekend and everyone waives inspection. In Florida, 35 days means you have time to think, negotiate, maybe tour the place twice. Inventory exists. Redfin confirms Florida metro areas maintain 2.5 to 3.5 months of housing supply. Not abundance, but actual availability. Compare that to Austin at 1.8 months or Seattle at 1.2 months. You can't move somewhere with zero inventory no matter how much you want to. And Florida isn't building the same cookie cutter subdivisions in one corner of the state. Jacksonville adds 15,000 housing units annually. Tampa adds 18,000. Orlando adds 25,000. Even smaller markets like Lakeland and Port St. Lucie are permitting thousands of units. The construction spreads across price points. Luxury waterfront, middle class subdivisions, townhomes, condos. You want a $250,000 starter home. They exist. That's what a parking space costs in Boston. Not a house with a parking space, just the parking space. The entire house costs less than the privilege of leaving your car somewhere in Beacon Hill. You want a $2 million estate? Those exist too. The supply curve actually has options across the spectrum. Picture this. Saturday morning in Tampa. You schedule 3 house showings. You actually see all 3. You take notes. You compare. You think about it over lunch. You make an offer Tuesday with inspection contingency. Compare that to San Jose, where you waive everything, bid $150,000 over ask, and write a heartfelt letter about your golden retriever, and still lose to an all-cash investor who's never even seen the photos. Florida's housing market is functional. That's not luxury. That's a miracle. Here's what nobody talks about. Florida's zoning laws allow vertical growth in urban cores and horizontal sprawl in the periphery. It's not ideologically pure. Urbanist Twitter hates the sprawl. NIMBY groups hate the density, but it works. Miami builds 50-story luxury towers downtown while Polk County approves master-planned communities on former ranch land. Both happen simultaneously. Housing gets built. People who want walkable urbanism get downtown condos. People who want yards and pools get suburban subdivisions. The market serves different preferences instead of strangling all of them. A Tampa realtor put it bluntly. My California clients cry when they see what $400,000 buys here. Like actual tears. They've been conditioned to think homeownership means a condo with no parking or a 2-hour commute. We show them a 2,200 square foot house with a pool and they ask what the catch is. The catch is, you have to live in Florida. For most of them, that's that's not a catch anymore. And this isn't some temporary boom. Florida has maintained this construction pace for over a decade, through economic cycles, through the pandemic, through interest rate spikes. The state averaged 180,000 plus permits annually from 2015 through 2024. The infrastructure exists to absorb growth, utilities, roads, schools expand alongside housing. This isn't a gold rush town throwing up shacks. It's systematic, sustained development. Does Florida build too much sprawl? Probably. Are some developments cookie cutter soulless? Absolutely. But if your alternative is bidding $200,000 over asking on a 900 square foot bungalow in Oakland with foundation issues, Florida's building boom starts looking pretty good. And here's the thing, housing supply isn't just about having a place to live. It's the foundation for everything else. You can't start a business if you can't afford rent. You can't raise a family if you're spending 60% of income on housing. You can't build a life if housing scarcity traps you in place. Florida removes that constraint. The houses exist. You can actually move there. But building houses is just the start. What happens when you actually need to get around once you arrive? Number 6, infrastructure investment nobody talks about. While other states patch potholes and defer maintenance, Florida is building infrastructure for a state of 30 million people. It currently has 23 million. They're building ahead of the curve. Start with the ports. Port Miami is now the deepest port on the eastern seaboard after a $600 million dredging project. It handles 1.2 million TEUs of cargo annually and serves as the cruise capital of the world with 7 million passengers. Fun fact, that's more than the entire population of Missouri passing through one port every year. The infrastructure to handle that volume, terminals, parking, ground transport, customs, didn't exist 20 years ago. Florida built it. Port Everglades in Fort Lauderdale just completed a $1.6 billion expansion. Jacksonville's port moved 1.5 million containers last year. These aren't just tourist gimmicks. They're global logistics hubs competing with Los Angeles and Newark for cargo traffic. According to the Florida Department of Transportation, the state invested $13.8 billion in transportation infrastructure in a recent fiscal year. That's more than the GDP of 50-plus countries. Florida is spending sovereign nation money on roads, ports, and transit, while some states are deciding which bridges to close because they can't afford inspections. Compare that to states with similar populations. New York spent $11.2 billion. Illinois spent $4.8 billion. Florida is outbuilding states with larger economies and older infrastructure that desperately needs replacement. The highway expansions are everywhere. I-4 through Orlando, the most congested highway in America, is getting a $2.3 billion overhaul, adding express lanes from Kirkman Road to downtown. I-75 in Southwest Florida is expanding to 6 lanes from Naples to Fort Myers. The Turnpike is adding capacity south of Orlando. These aren't small projects. We're talking about moving millions of vehicles per day through a state where population is growing 1.9% annually. Then there's Brightline, the only private intercity passenger rail system built in America in a century. It connects Miami to Orlando in 3 hours, with West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale stops in between. Phase 2, Orlando to Tampa, is in development. When completed, you'll travel from Miami to Tampa entirely by rail. A Reddit user put it perfectly. California spent $10 billion on high-speed rail and got a pile of dirt in Fresno. Florida spent $5 billion and got actual trains moving actual people. The Florida highway drivers will still honk at the train for going too slow, but at least the train will exist. That's more than California can say. The airports are expanding too. Orlando International just opened a $2.8 billion Terminal C. Tampa International completed a $1.1 billion modernization. Fort Lauderdale Hollywood added a runway 10R to 28L expansion to handle increased traffic. Miami International processes 52 million passengers annually and is planning further expansions. These airports aren't maintaining capacity. They're building for growth that hasn't arrived yet. And here's what separates Florida from states managing decline. The infrastructure isn't defensive. It's not fix the crumbling bridge before it collapses. It's build the new bridge because we'll need it in 5 years. The mentality is offense, not defense. Jacksonville just completed the $2.3 billion I-295/I-95 interchange upgrade, the largest infrastructure project in city history. St. Petersburg is building a new pier and waterfront development. Fort Myers is expanding its airport and adding hotel capacity. Even smaller cities like Ocala and Vero Beach are upgrading utilities facilities and roads to handle growth. A transportation analyst told us, Florida treats infrastructure like a business invests in capacity. You build before you need it, not after it's already broken. That's the difference between growth states and decline states. When you can actually drive to work, fly to clients, ship products efficiently, that's not lifestyle. That's competitive economic advantage. Picture this. You land at Orlando International. Terminal C, opened 2022. Glass, light, moving walkways that actually work. You're through baggage claim in 12 minutes. Highway entrance is 3 minutes from the curb. You merge onto a 6-lane highway with actual shoulders and clear signage. GPS shows green all the way to your destination. Now picture landing at LaGuardia. Construction detours, potholed access roads, bridge traffic backed up to Queens. You sit still for 40 minutes before you've gone 3 miles. Infrastructure isn't abstract. It's the daily tax you pay or don't pay. Infrastructure isn't sexy. It's not a tax break or a beach photo, but it's the foundation of everything else. And Florida is building it while other states are cutting maintenance budgets and praying the bridges hold. So you've got housing supply and infrastructure to support it. But why are businesses following the people? Number 5, business migration follows people migration. Here's what happens when hundreds of thousands of people move somewhere. Businesses follow them, and not just local coffee shops. We're talking Fortune 500 headquarters. Since 2020, Florida has attracted an unprecedented wave of corporate relocations and expansions. Citadel, the $59 billion hedge fund, moved its headquarters from Chicago to Miami. Ken Griffin didn't just move himself. He moved 1,000 plus employees and their families. Moving a hedge fund headquarters costs tens of millions. Office build-out, relocation packages, new infrastructure. Ken Griffin spent that money to leave Chicago. That's like paying for a divorce from an abusive marriage. When billionaires spend 9 figures to escape your city, maybe the problem isn't them. Goldman Sachs opened a major office in Miami expecting to house 500 plus employees. Blackstone expanded its West Palm Beach presence. These aren't satellite offices, these are strategic relocations of core business functions. According to business relocation data tracked by multiple sources, Florida gained a net 124 corporate headquarters between 2020 and 2024. California lost 74. New York lost 52. Illinois lost 28. The Fortune 500 count tells the story. Florida went from hosting 25 Fortune 500 headquarters in 2015 to 36 in recent years. That's not just shuffling, that's concentrated corporate migration, and it's not just finance. Tech companies are expanding aggressively. Microsoft opened an Orlando office. Amazon has multiple fulfillment and tech centers across the state. Apple is expanding in Miami and Orlando. Wayfair opened a major office in Jacksonville. These companies pay 6-figure salaries and bring entire ecosystems. Vendors, clients, service providers with them. The biotech sector is exploding. Scripps Research in Jupiter employs hundreds of researchers. Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa is one of the nation's top cancer research institutions. The University of Florida's Innovation Hub in Lake Nona brings together medical research, tech companies, and healthcare providers in a purpose-built campus. Florida is no longer just a place where old people retire. It's where cutting-edge research happens. And here's the compounding effect. When Goldman Sachs moves 500 employees to Miami, those employees need dentists, contractors, personal trainers, dry cleaners, restaurants. Those service providers need accountants and lawyers. Those professionals need office space and IT support. One corporate relocation creates hundreds of secondary jobs. It's a multiplier effect that builds on itself. Manufacturing is returning too. Embraer produces aircraft in Melbourne. Lockheed Martin has a significant presence. The Port Canaveral area is becoming an aerospace hub with SpaceX, Blue Origin, and defense contractors clustering around the Space Coast. These are advanced manufacturing jobs paying $80,000 plus with benefits. A business consultant told us, companies follow talent, and talent follows quality of life. Florida offers both now. You can hire a software engineer for $140,000 instead of $220,000 in San Francisco, and that engineer gets a better lifestyle. Everyone wins except California's tax collector. The venture capital is following too. Miami has emerged as a legitimate startup hub. Founders Fund, Atomic, and other major VCs now have Florida presences. The amount of venture capital deployed in Florida startups increased 340% between 2019 and recent years, according to PitchBook data. It's not Silicon Valley, nothing is, but it's no longer a backwater, and this creates a network effect that didn't exist a decade ago. In 2015, if you were a tech professional, Florida was a career dead end. In 2025, you can work for Goldman Sachs, Microsoft, Amazon, a well-funded startup, or launch your own company, all while living in a state with no income tax and actual housing supply. Remember reason number 7, housing supply enables everything else. These companies can move here because their employees can actually find places to live. The career penalty for leaving coastal cities is evaporating. Does Florida have Silicon Valley's density of talent? No. Does it have New York's financial infrastructure depth? Not yet, but it has momentum, and momentum matters. Businesses are making billion-dollar bets on Florida. They're not doing that for the weather, which brings us to the people who saw this coming before the companies did. Number 4, the remote work arbitrage. This is the quiet revolution nobody prepared for. Workers who kept their coastal salaries and moved to Florida living standards. The math is devastating for high-cost states. Let's run the numbers. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics data and cost of living calculators, a household earning $150,000 in San Francisco has the equivalent purchasing power of $68,000 in Tampa. That's not a typo. A $150,000 salary in the Bay Area, which barely qualifies as middle class, translates to a comfortable upper middle class life in Florida. Same money, completely different life. Zillow data shows San Francisco's median home price at $1.28 million. Tampa's median is $392,000. If you're a remote software engineer keeping that $180,000 Silicon Valley salary, you just bought yourself an extra $3,000 plus per month in mortgage savings alone. That's $36,000 annually, enough to max out retirement contributions, fund college savings, and still have money left over. And it's not just housing. Florida has no state income tax. California's top marginal rate is 13.3%. On a $150,000 salary, that's roughly $10,000 in annual savings just from the state tax difference. New York State charges up to 10.9%. New Jersey charges up to 10.75%. For high earners, the tax arbitrage alone funds a yearly vacation. According to Redfin migration data, Tampa, Miami, and Jacksonville were 3 of the top 5 destinations for outbound Bay Area movers in recent years. Orlando and Fort Myers cracked the top 10. These aren't retirees. The median age of Bay Area to Florida movers is 37. They're working professionals who realize they don't need to live in a $4,000 per month one-bedroom to access tech salaries anymore. The remote work shift made this possible at scale. Pre-2020, maybe 5% of knowledge workers could negotiate full remote. Post-pandemic, that number hit 15 to 20% in many industries, and partial remote became standard. Companies that previously required office attendance 5 days a week now accept you can work from anywhere as normal. That unlocked geographic arbitrage for millions of workers. And the arbitrage isn't just financial, it's spatial. According to Apartment List data, the average California renter lives in 863 square feet. The average Florida homeowner has 1,950 square feet. You're not just saving money, you're gaining an extra 1,000 plus square feet of living space. That's a home office, a guest room, a yard, storage, the ability to own things instead of Marie Kondoing your life into a closet, your Seattle coworker on Zoom, folding desk wedged between bed and wall, noise-canceling headphones blocking the neighbor's drum practice. You in Tampa, dedicated home office with a door, built-in shelves, window overlooking the pool, same company, same salary. One of you has a yoga studio worth of extra space. The other one has a Murphy desk. A former New Yorker told us, "I kept my Manhattan salary and moved to St. Petersburg. My quality of life increased by every metric while my expenses dropped 40%. It felt like cheating. It's not cheating, it's just math. But New York's entire model depends on people not doing this math. The food is cheaper, car insurance is cheaper, utilities are comparable, entertainment costs less, even healthcare. Florida's competitive insurance market and lack of state mandates means premiums often run lower than Northeast equivalents. The savings compound across every category, and here's what high-cost states don't want to admit: most knowledge work doesn't require physical presence. The hedge fund analyst doesn't need to be in a Manhattan tower. The software engineer doesn't need to be in Palo Alto. The consultant doesn't need to be in downtown Chicago. Those requirements were cultural, not functional. The pandemic proved it. Remote work proved it. Florida is harvesting the talent that finally figured it out. Does remote work have downsides? Absolutely. You lose serendipitous office interactions, networking density, after-work drinks that turn into career opportunities. But for many people, the trade-off, $50,000 in in annual savings and an extra bedroom. Beats occasional happy hour networking. But saving money only matters if you're not spending it all sending your kids to a failing school system. Which brings us to the objection Florida just removed. Number 3, education system improvement trajectory. For decades, Florida's education system was a punchline. Test scores lagged. Graduation rates embarrassed. Florida man jokes extended to Florida schools. Then something changed. Florida went from bottom tier to top 10 nationally in multiple metrics. And families noticed. Florida's education system was a punchline for decades. Then something changed. According to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, Florida now ranks 4th nationally in 4th grade reading, 6th and 4th grade math, 3rd and 8th grade reading. The graduation rate hit 90.9%, above the national average and a 20-point increase from 2 decades ago. Miami-Dade, one of the nation's largest urban districts, maintains 89% graduation despite serving a heavily immigrant, economically diverse population. These aren't cherry-picked metrics. This is consistent top 10 performance. But rankings matter less to families than options. Florida has the most expansive school choice system in America. 5 separate programs serving 420,000 students, nearly 1 in 6. The charter sector includes 725 schools, enrolling 402,000 students across STEM academies, arts programs, Montessori schools, and college prep charters. Private school scholarships extend to families earning up to $130,000 plus, meaning middle-class households can access $15,000 per year private schools that would otherwise be out of reach. A quality private school in Florida costs $12,000 to $15,000 annually with scholarship support. In Manhattan, private school tuition runs $45,000 to $60,000 per year. That's a new Tesla every single year per child. Florida families are funding college savings with the money New York families spend on K-12. If your assigned district school doesn't fit your kid, you have options. Real options with real funding. The state university system punches above its weight. UF ranks 6th among public universities nationally. FSU cracks the top 20, and in-state tuition runs $6,400 compared to $14,000 plus at UC schools. The teacher pipeline improved too. Minimum starting salary hit $47,500 statewide, with some districts paying $52,000 plus, comparable to northern states when adjusted for cost of living. You can actually live on a teacher salary in Florida, which helps recruitment and retention. Thursday 3 p.m., Sarasota. Parent picks up kid from charter school, 5-minute drive home, homework done by 3:30. Same Thursday 3 p.m., Brooklyn. Parent starts 45-minute subway commute to a school with a 1,200 student wait list and metal detectors at the entrance. Both families earning similar money. Wildly different realities. A parent who relocated from New Jersey told us, in Bergen County, we paid $18,000 in property taxes for mediocre schools and zero choice. In Florida, we pay $4,000 in property taxes. Our kids attend a highly rated charter school, and if we didn't like it, we'd have 6 other options within 15 minutes. It's not even close. The improvement isn't just metrics, it's visible infrastructure investment. Broward County opened 2 new schools in recent years. Orange County added 3. Miami-Dade is constructing facilities to handle enrollment growth. These are modern buildings with technology integration, not the crumbling 1960s structures many northeastern districts are limping along with. Does Florida still have problems? Absolutely. Some rural districts struggle. Standardized testing is controversial, but here's what matters to families making relocation decisions. Florida's trajectory is upward, while many blue states are managing decline. California's K-12 enrollment dropped 270,000 students in 3 years. New York lost 120,000. Illinois lost 75,000. Those students went somewhere. Many of them went to Florida schools that are improving while their former state systems deteriorate. You can now move to Florida and not sacrifice your kids' education. That wasn't true in 2005. It's true now, and that removed the single biggest objection families had. But education is a long-term consideration. What about the daily reality of living somewhere? And more specifically, what about the math? Because if Florida's infrastructure is improving and schools are no longer a disqualifier, there's one reason making professionals do calculations and spreadsheets at midnight. Number 2, weather as economic infrastructure. Everyone talks about Florida's weather as a lifestyle perk. Nobody talks about it as economic infrastructure. That's a mistake. Year-round construction season is a competitive advantage worth billions. January morning, 7 a.m., Tampa construction crew pours foundations. Boston construction site, shut down since November, frozen ground, winterized equipment. Crew on unemployment until April. Same calendar day. One site gets 5 months of progress. The other gets 0. Multiply that across every construction project in the state. That's not weather. That's billions in competitive advantage. In Chicago, construction shuts down from November through March. You lose 5 months of building season to frozen ground and sub-zero temperatures. In Boston, concrete won't cure properly below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. You're working with a 6-month window for major projects. In Minnesota, road construction crews pack up in October and don't return until May. Florida, construction happens in January, February, July, December, all year, every year. According to the Associated General Contractors of America, Florida maintains construction employment year-round without the seasonal layoffs northern states experience. The state added 41,000 construction jobs in a recent year without the boom-bust seasonal cycle. When you can build 12 months instead of 7, you build more housing, finish projects faster, and keep workers employed instead of cycling them through unemployment every winter. As one construction foreman from Minnesota told us, "I moved to Jacksonville and didn't get laid off for the first time in 15 years. November comes and I'm still working. December comes and I'm still working. My guys have health insurance through the winter. That's not about weather. That's about feeding my family year-round instead of cycling through unemployment." The outdoor economy runs year-round too. According to the Outdoor Industry Association, Florida's outdoor recreation economy generates $59 billion annually. That's not just tourism. That's fishing guides working 300 plus days per year instead of 120. That's landscaping companies operating continuously instead of shutting down half the year. That's restaurants with patio seating generating revenue in February, while Chicago patios are buried under snow. Think about productivity. In states with harsh winters, you lose days to snow emergencies, ice storms, and cold snaps that shut down transportation. According to Federal Highway Administration data, snow and ice cause 156,000 crashes annually nationwide and cost the economy $5.2 billion in delays and lost productivity. Florida avoids that entirely. Roads stay open, businesses stay operational, workers actually show up. The agriculture sector benefits massively. Florida produces citrus, strawberries, tomatoes, and vegetables year-round, while northern farms sit dormant 8 months a year. According to USDA data, Florida ranks second nationally in total vegetable production value and first in fresh market tomatoes, bell peppers, and sweet corn. Fun fact, Florida produces 70% of America's orange juice and 100% of domestic Valencia oranges. Your breakfast OJ is almost certainly from Florida or Brazil. That year-round growing season translates to agricultural dominance northern states can't touch regardless of technology or investment. And here's the part nobody considers. Air conditioning is cheaper than heating. According to Energy Information Administration data, the average Florida household spends $1,559 annually on electricity, mostly AC. The average Massachusetts household spends $1,733 on heating oil, natural gas, and electricity combined. Northern winters are more expensive than southern summers when you factor in heating fuel, higher electricity rates, and winterization costs. The recreation infrastructure operates continuously. Golf courses host snowbird tournaments in January. Baseball spring training fills stadiums in February and March. State parks maintain full visitation year-round. According to Visit Florida data, the state hosted 137.6 million visitors in a recent year, generating $112 billion in economic impact. That tourism infrastructure, hotels, restaurants, attractions, employs hundreds of thousands of workers 12 months a year instead of seasonal summer-only jobs. A business owner told us, "I ran a construction company in Ohio for 15 years. Every November, I laid off half my crew. Every April, I scrambled to rehire. In Florida, I keep my team year-round. They get better. We finish projects faster, and I'm not burning money on seasonal unemployment. The weather isn't a perk. It's structural economic advantage. And it's not just about avoiding cold. It's about consistency. Businesses can forecast production, projects hit deadlines, workers stay employed, revenue streams stay stable. The predictability has value beyond the temperature. Does Florida have hurricanes? Yes. Does summer humidity make outdoor work brutal? Number 1, the compounding effect nobody sees coming. Here's the thing about migration. It creates its own momentum. Florida isn't just growing, it's accelerating. And the compounding network effects are the real reason it remains America's top relocation state. When 365,000 net new residents arrive in a single year, they don't just fill houses, they create demand for doctors, dentists, veterinarians, accountants, lawyers, contractors, plumbers, electricians, hair salons, gyms, restaurants, coffee shops, dry cleaners, and every other service humans need. Those service providers move in and create their own demand. The cycle compounds. According to economic multiplier research, every new high-wage job creates roughly 2.5 additional service jobs in the local economy. When Goldman Sachs brings 500 bankers to Miami earning $200,000 plus, that creates 1,250 jobs serving them. Baristas, yoga instructors, nannies, personal trainers, house cleaners. Those 1,250 workers need their own services. The network effect spirals outward, and Florida is hitting the critical mass where the network becomes self-sustaining. Miami now has a legitimate tech startup scene. That attracts venture capital. VC attracts more startups. More startups attract talent. Talent attracts more VC. The loop feeds itself. This is the same dynamic that built Silicon Valley and Seattle, except Florida is doing it with lower costs, better weather, and no state income tax. The amenity spiral is accelerating too. According to Yelp and business registration data, Florida added thousands of new restaurants in recent years, hundreds of new gyms and fitness studios, dozens of music venues and cultural spaces. When 100,000 affluent professionals move to Tampa, they demand good coffee, live music, craft breweries, farmers markets, yoga studios. Entrepreneurs see the demand and build supply. The supply attracts more people. The loop compounds. It's 2030, downtown Tampa. You're choosing between 6 specialty coffee roasters, a Japanese kissetten, and a Nordic cafe that just opened. 5 years earlier, 2 options: Starbucks or gas station. Same neighborhood. The restaurants quadrupled. A music venue opened. An independent cinema. That's the network effect in lived experience. Not abstract economics, but the difference between nothing to do and too many options. Here's what happened to California and New York. They hit peak network effect, then strangled themselves with costs and regulations. The network effects reversed. Businesses left. Talent followed. Amenities closed. The death spiral accelerated. Florida is experiencing the opposite, the compounding growth spiral that California had in the 1980s and 1990s. And the infrastructure investments we discussed in reason number 6, they make sense only because Florida is building for the compounding effect. You don't spend $13.8 billion on transportation infrastructure for a stable population. You spend it because you know 30 million residents are coming and you're building the capacity now. The infrastructure spending enables more growth, which justifies more infrastructure spending. California used to do this. Florida does it now. The political dynamics compound too. As Florida gains population, it gains congressional seats and electoral college votes. After the 2020 census, Florida gained 2 House seats, while New York and California lost 1 each. That shift brings more federal attention, more political power, more resource allocation. Growth creates political influence, which enables more growth. Florida is projected to overtake New York as the 3rd most populous state by 2026, according to University of Florida demographic projections. By 2030, Florida could approach 25 million residents. By 2040, it could hit 30 million. That's not speculative. That's demographic momentum already in motion. You can't reverse a migration wave this size without catastrophic intervention. A demographer told us, Florida's growth isn't linear anymore, it's exponential. Each new resident makes the state more attractive to the next one. That's the definition of a network effect. And once it starts, it's almost impossible to stop. The business ecosystem compounds too. As more companies relocate, the vendor and service ecosystem deepens. Law firms open Florida offices to serve corporate clients. Accounting firms expand. IT consultancies set up shop. Recruiting firms specialize in Florida placement. The entire professional services ecosystem builds itself because the client base exists and is growing, and the reverse network effect is crushing high-cost states. Every person who leaves California makes California slightly worse for those who remain. Tax burden increases on remaining residents. Housing inventory loosens, but not enough to fix affordability. Services and amenities lose customers and close. The death spiral accelerates. Illinois lost 383,000 residents between 2010 and 2023, according to census data. New York lost 1.2 million. Those people went somewhere. Florida gained 365,000 people in a single year. California lost 691,000. New York lost 299,000. Illinois lost 122,000. That's not a trend. That's a structural realignment of American geography. And every single reason we just covered, from housing supply to network effects, is accelerating that realignment. The pattern is clear. States losing population have unfixable structural problems. Regulatory paralysis choking housing supply, deteriorating infrastructure with no funding to fix it, business hostile environments driving companies away, education systems in managed decline, and reverse network effects where each departure makes conditions worse for those who remain. Florida has the opposite trajectory on every metric, and momentum matters more than perfection. The people getting crushed are the middle class in high-cost states who can't afford to leave. The teachers, nurses, tradespeople, and middle managers watching their purchasing power evaporate while politicians promise solutions that never arrive. They're trapped in places where a decent life requires $200,000 plus household income, and they're making $85,000. If you're in California paying $4,200 per month for a two-bedroom apartment, or in New York watching your kids attend failing schools while your property taxes fund pension obligations, or in Illinois watching another headquarters leave for Dallas or Phoenix or Miami, run the math. Calculate what your salary buys in Florida versus where you are now. Look at housing costs, education quality, tax burden, career opportunities. The math might surprise you. Florida isn't the only option. Texas, Tennessee, North Carolina, Arizona. Other states are growing for similar structural reasons, but Florida has the combination of factors that create compounding growth: housing supply, infrastructure investment, business migration, geographic arbitrage, education improvement, weather advantage, and network effects all working simultaneously. Hit that subscribe button if you want more migration analysis and real estate market breakdowns. Share this with anyone considering a move or wondering why their state is hemorrhaging residents. Drop a comment with your current state and whether you've considered Florida. The migration data doesn't lie. The network effects are accelerating, and the people who figure it out first get the best deals before prices catch up to demand. We're done here.